there's something nobody tells you about worry. It doesn't protect you. It doesn't prepare you. It doesn't make the outcome better or the road smoother. It just steals the present moment and replaces it with a version of the future that almost never actually arrives. You sit there, running the same scenario through your head for the 100th time, convinced that if you just think about it hard enough, you'll find the answer that makes everything safe. But you never do, because worry was never designed to solve anything. It was designed to keep you frozen. Think about the last time you genuinely couldn't stop worrying about something. You replayed conversations. You imagined worst-case outcomes. You rehearsed what you'd say, what they'd say, how it would all fall apart. And then what happened? Either it turned out nothing like you imagined, or you were so drained by the time it arrived that you couldn't even show up properly for it. That's the cost nobody counts. Not just the sleepless nights, not just the tension in your chest, but the version of yourself you could have been in that time, the clarity you could have had, the moves you could have made. All of it surrendered to a loop in your mind that produced nothing except exhaustion. Here's what worry actually is, beneath all the justifications you give it. It's a lack of trust dressed up as responsibility. You tell yourself you're worried because you care, because the stakes are high, because you're serious about your life. But caring and worrying are not the same thing. A surgeon who truly cares about their patient prepares, studies, and then enters the operating room with stillness. They don't shake. They don't spiral. Because they know that the moment fear enters their hands, the patient loses. The same is true for your life. The moment worry enters your decisions, your judgment becomes compromised. You start moving from panic instead of purpose. And panic has never once built anything worth keeping. The cruel irony is that the things you worry about most are usually the things you care about most. Your relationships, your finances, your future, your health. And because you care so deeply, you convince yourself that the worry is proportional to the love. That if you stopped worrying, it would mean you stopped caring. But that's the trap. That's the lie your fear tells you to keep you loyal to it. Because in reality, the more you worry about something, the less clearly you can see it. Worry distorts. It magnifies problems and shrinks possibilities. It makes an obstacle look like a wall and a setback look like an ending. When you're deep inside the spiral, you genuinely cannot see the solution that's sitting right beside you, because your mind is too flooded with noise to notice the signal. There's a reason the most formidable people you've ever encountered seem unbothered. Not because their lives are easy, not because they don't face difficulty, but because they've made a decision, either consciously or through hard experience, that their mental energy is too valuable to waste on things they cannot immediately control. They still feel the uncertainty, they still notice the risk, but they don't live there. They observe it, they account for it, and then they move. That's not coldness. That's not indifference. That is the highest form of discipline available to a human being. The discipline of a calm mind in an uncertain world. And the moment you stop worrying, something shifts. Not out there in the world, not immediately, but inside you. The noise quiets, the chest loosens. Your eyes, which were darting around looking for threats, begin to settle and actually see what's in front of you. You start thinking in straight lines again instead of circles. And straight line thinking is where every good decision lives. It's where strategy is born. It's where you finally stop reacting to life and start shaping it. Because here's the truth that worry has been hiding from you. You are far more capable of handling whatever comes than you've been giving yourself credit for. You've survived every hard thing that has ever happened to you. Every one. And yet your mind keeps convincing you that the next thing will be the one you can't survive. It won't be. You'll handle it the same way you've always handled it. By moving through it. The moment you release the grip, life starts to move again. That's the part that shocks people. They expect that when they stop worrying, things will fall apart because that's what the fear promised would happen if they ever let go. But the opposite occurs. Doors that seemed sealed begin to open. Conversations that were stuck begin to flow. Opportunities that were invisible begin to appear, not because the world changed overnight, but because you changed. your perception sharpened. Your energy stopped bleeding into imaginary disasters and started flowing toward actual possibilities. And the world responds to that shift faster than you think. There's a physics to human life that most people never study because they're too busy worrying to observe it. Every action you take carries either the frequency of fear or the frequency of faith, and whatever frequency you operate on is what you tend to attract back. When you move from worry, you move erratically. You push too hard, too soon. You speak with desperation in your voice, even when your words sound confident. You make decisions that are slightly off because they're being filtered through anxiety rather than clarity. People feel that. Opportunities sense it. The version of life you're trying to build can't take root in soil that's constantly being turned over by restless hands. But when you move from stillness, everything changes. Your actions land differently. Your words carry weight instead of urgency. You stop repelling the very things you've been chasing. Think about the relationships in your life that fell apart under the pressure of your own anxiety. How many times did you say something you didn't mean because you were afraid of losing someone and ended up pushing them away because of it? How many times did you check in one too many times, ask one too many questions, and turn something that could have been easy into something exhausting? Worry in relationships doesn't protect the connection, it suffocates it, because nobody wants to be loved by someone who is terrified. People are drawn to those who love with open hands, who care deeply but don't cling, who are present without being consuming. That kind of love only comes from a person who has made peace with uncertainty, who understands that you cannot force another person to stay, to choose you, to see your worth. All you can do is be someone worth choosing and then let the truth of that speak for itself. The same principle applies to your goals. You've probably noticed that the things you've wanted most desperately took the longest to arrive, and the things you pursued with quiet confidence seem to come together with far less friction. That's not coincidence. Desperation creates resistance. It makes you move in ways that are slightly misaligned with what you actually want, because fear is navigating instead of vision. But when you get clear, when you settle into the certainty of your direction without being attached to the exact timeline or the exact path, something almost inexplicable happens. The right people show up. The right information surfaces. The next step reveals itself not because the universe is magical, although maybe it is, but because your mind is finally clear enough to see what was always there. This is what people mean when they talk about flow, not the absence of challenge, but the absence of unnecessary resistance. You stop fighting your own life. You stop arguing with reality. You stop spending energy on the gap between where you are and where you want to be, and you start spending that energy on actually closing the gap, and it closes faster than you believed possible. Because the only thing that was ever slowing you down was the weight of all that worry you were carrying. Put it down. Not because the problems aren't real, not because the stakes aren't high, but because you are not more effective with it than without it. You are only more tired. There's a specific kind of suffering that comes from trying to control what you were never meant to control. The opinions of other people, the timing of outcomes, the decisions of those who have already made up their minds, the way life chooses to arrange itself before your piece falls into place. And so many people spend years, sometimes entire lifetimes, pouring their energy into forcing these things, into manipulating, managing, maneuvering, into staying 3 steps ahead of a future that keeps changing the rules. It's exhausting in a way that sleep doesn't fix, because it's not your body that's tired, it's your soul. And the only cure for that kind of tired is surrender. Not giving up. Not walking away from your ambitions, but releasing the belief that you have to orchestrate every single detail for things to work out. You don't. In fact, your orchestrating has often been the very thing getting in the way. The people who seem to move through life with ease are not lucky in the way you think. They're not exempt from hardship or uncertainty. They've simply stopped treating uncertainty as an emergency. They've trained themselves to sit inside the unknown without flinching, to trust that they will know what to do when the moment arrives, and that moment has not yet arrived, so there is nothing to do right now except stay steady. That steadiness is not passivity. It is the most active, intentional state available to you. It takes more strength to remain calm when everything is uncertain than to run in any direction just to feel like you're doing something. There is a version of your life that exists just on the other side of your worry. Not a perfect life, not a life without difficulty or loss or moments that bring you to your knees, but a life where you are present enough to actually experience what's happening instead of spending every moment bracing for what might happen next. A life where your energy goes toward building instead of defending, where your mind is an asset instead of an adversary. That version of your life is not as far away as it feels right now. It's separated from you by a single shift in how you relate to uncertainty. And that shift is available to you right now, in this moment, before anything in your external circumstances changes at all. Because that's the thing most people get backwards. They're waiting for life to calm down before they calm down, waiting for the situation to resolve before they allow themselves to feel okay, waiting for the confirmation, the guarantee, the sign that everything is going to be all right before they're willing to release the tension they've been holding. But life doesn't work that way. Life responds to who you are, not to what you're waiting for. And if you wait for external peace before you create internal peace, you will wait forever. Because there will always be something uncertain. There will always be something unresolved. There will always be a reason to worry if worry is the habit you've built. The only way out is through the discomfort of releasing control, through the vulnerability of trusting yourself without a guarantee, through the strange and terrifying act of deciding to be okay before you have any proof that okay is coming. And when you make that decision, something remarkable begins to happen. The things that felt urgent start to reveal themselves as less critical than you believed. The problem that kept you up at night looks different in the morning when you approach it with a rested mind. The conversation you were dreading turns out to be the one that changes everything for the better. The waiting period that felt like abandonment turns out to be preparation, because life was always working on your behalf, even in the moments it didn't feel that way. Especially in those moments. The delays were redirections. The closed doors were protection. The silence was not rejection, but timing. And you couldn't see any of that while you were deep inside the worry, because worry only shows you the worst interpretation of every event. Stillness shows you the full picture. You have to understand what you're actually doing to yourself when you choose worry over trust. You're not being responsible. You're not being thorough. You're burning through the most precious resource you have, which is your focused attention, on a process that produces nothing except more fear. Every hour you spend in anxious anticipation is an hour you are not spending in genuine preparation, in creativity, in connection, in rest, in the kind of clear-eyed presence that actually makes good things happen. Worry is the most expensive habit a person can have, and unlike money, the time and energy it costs you cannot be recovered. This moment, the one you're spending rehearsing disaster, is gone. The question is whether you're willing to let the next one go the same way. Stop for a second and think about what your life would look like if you genuinely stopped worrying. Not suppressed it, not distracted yourself from it, but actually released it. If you woke up tomorrow and trusted, truly trusted, that you are capable of handling whatever arrives, that your preparation is sufficient, that the people who are meant to be in your life will be, and the ones who aren't will leave, and both of those outcomes are survivable, that your finances, however they look right now, are workable, that your health, your future, your relationships, your career, none of them require your constant anxious surveillance to hold together. Imagine what you would do with all that energy. Imagine who you would become with that much of yourself returned to you. That person is not a fantasy. That is who you actually are underneath the worry. Underneath the noise and the spiraling and the endless what-ifs is someone with genuine instincts, real courage, and a capacity for joy that anxiety has been quietly suppressing for years. The worry convinced you that you needed it, that without it you'd be naive, unprepared, blindsided. But the truth is that without it, you would be sharper, calmer, more decisive, and far more effective in every area of your life, because clarity always outperforms anxiety. Always. In every domain, In every circumstance, in every season of life, the clearest mind wins. So here is what stopping worry actually looks like in practice. It doesn't look like pretending everything is fine. It doesn't look like toxic positivity or forced optimism or refusing to acknowledge that hard things are hard. It looks like feeling the fear and choosing not to live inside it. It looks like noticing the uncertainty and deciding to act anyway, with the best information you currently have, trusting that you will adjust as more becomes clear. It looks like giving your full attention to what is actually in front of you right now, not the imagined catastrophe 3 months from now. It looks like doing what you can do today and then genuinely releasing the rest, not pretending to release it while secretly holding on, actually letting it go, returning to it only when there is something actionable to be done, and when there isn't, choosing presence instead. Because presence is where your power lives, not in the future you're afraid of, not in the past you keep replaying. Right here, in this moment, with these resources, with this version of yourself, is where every single thing you want begins. And when you stop worrying long enough to actually show up here, fully and without resistance, you will be stunned by how fast things begin to turn around. Not because you finally figured out the right thing to worry about, but because you finally stopped. And in that stillness, life finally had room to move.